Hello and welcome to this short Learner Toolkit recording on answering the new style check questions in functional skills maths assessments. NCFE functional skills papers changed from the 17th of October 2025, and one change is the addition of check questions. So here's an example. This is a level 1 example. Andy shops for all the materials he needs. The materials cost £85. This is a fifth of Andy's budget. How much is his total budget? 2 marks available for the actual question. And then we have this second part to the question. Show a reverse calculation to check your answer. And in other questions, there may also be a use estimation to check your answer. Now, when I first saw these questions, I was really pleased because it's always a good idea to check your answers. So as far as I'm concerned, this seemed like a brilliant way for you to achieve a mark while also checking your work that will obviously be worth even more marks. However, in the first set of assessments that was sat, the Chief Examiner noticed a variety of responses to the checking tasks, including some with just a calculation shown and no answer, so they didn't get the mark. I'll explain what I mean shortly when we get to the assessment questions. So they showed a reverse calculation, but the reverse calculation didn't have the equals, and the final bit. Some of the check questions were not attempted at all. Now, obviously, if you don't attempt a question, you cannot possibly get a mark. Some learners used a reverse when an estimation was asked for, or an estimation when a reverse was asked for, so they didn't get a mark. Now, there were also some responses with an estimation and a reverse, which is not required, but they were awarded the mark. Please don't use this as your best strategy. If it asks for an estimation, just do an estimation. If it asks for a reverse calculation, just do a reverse calculation. There is no need to do both. And obviously there were some that were completed fully correctly, and these got the mark. So the purpose of this recording is to support you in making sure that you get those check question marks. Now, in the sample and practice papers that are available at level 1 and level 2, the subject content statements covered by the check questions are level 1, use multiplication facts and make connections with division facts. And at level 2, carry out calculations with numbers up to 1 million, including strategies to check answers, including estimation and approximation. Now, in level 2, although reverse calculation is not explicitly stated in the subject content statement, it's not explicitly stated in the level 1 content statement either. It just says make connections. But at level 2, it's implied when it says including strategies. That means any strategies for carrying out calculations and any strategies to check answers, including estimation and approximation, but you can also assume that it also means reverse calculations there too, since that is a strategy. It doesn't need to be explicitly stated in order for it to also count. Now, also at level 1, there could be a check question that assesses N15, estimate answers to calculations using fractions and decimals. So that's what is being assessed by those check questions. Now, one type of check question is a reverse calculation, and we're going to take a look at that first. Now, when we talk about reverse calculation or reverse operations, we mean that an inverse or reverse operation needs to be calculated. So let's take a look. The opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. So we can check a subtraction calculation by completing an addition. So for example, if we're doing 9 take away 5 equals 4, then if we add together the 5 and the 4, to check, then that should give us 9, and of course it does. Using very low numbers here just to make it very clear what we're talking about. with multiplication and division. The opposite of multiplication is division. So to check a division calculation, we can complete a multiplication and vice versa. So 30 divided by 5 is 6. Is that correct? Well, is 6 times 5 30? Yes, it is. So we know it's correct. And like I said, we've got very low numbers here just to help you to see what we mean by reverse operations. But if you're doing level 1, you need to be able to manage numbers up to 1,000,000. And at level 2, you need to be able to manage numbers of any size. Reverse or inverse operations is usually covered at entry level. So if you're only doing a level 2 qualification, it's not part of your syllabus to cover reverse operations. However, using reverse operations as a strategy for checking at level 1 and level 2, it should be taught. But certainly for you as a learner, it is something that you need to be aware of, and you need to use it to check your calculations all the time. If you understand how to do this check, it'll help you with all of your questions, not just those that have a specific check question element. Okay, we're going to take a look at some assessment examples now. And what I've done is I've taken past questions and written them in the new style, so that when you are set a mock using our sample and practice paper, you won't have seen those questions. Please, if you somehow manage to get your hands on our sample or mock or practice paper for level 1 and level 2, speak to your teacher before you go looking into those questions, because if they're going to set them as a timed mock, the best thing for you to do is to not look at those questions, because otherwise the mock assessment that you do is going to give your teacher a false belief in what you're capable of. Okay, so that's why we're using these past questions here, and that's why it's really important that the sample and practice papers that we have that your teacher is likely to be using as a mock, it should be left sight unread by you until they're set as a mock for you. Okay, so let's take a look at this question. It's the one we looked at before. So let's see how we'll go about answering this. So our learner has done a very sensible thing. They've highlighted the important information. So the materials cost £85. This is a fifth of Andy's budget. So how much is the total budget? Well, if £85 is a fifth, then we need to do 85 times 5 to give us £425, and that is his total budget. So that's the answer that we're going with there to give us the 2 marks. And then it says use a reverse calculation to check your answer. And so the reverse of the multiplication is a division. So 425 divided by 5 equals 85. And that is going to give us the mark. It doesn't matter that we haven't written anything in the your check box, because we can see very clearly we've got our reverse calculation. And as I said in an earlier slide, some learners were writing the reverse calculation, so they might write 425 divided by 5 and they wouldn't write that equals 85, and therefore they would not get that mark. So please, if you're going to do a reverse calculation, please do write it out in full with the answer. And also, I've written a division symbol here on the screen for you to be able to read. But if you are doing an online assessment, you can't use a division symbol. However, the most sensible thing for you to use instead is a /. If you use a / symbol, then that will be understood as division in an on-screen assessment. Okay, here's a level 2 example. Callista mixes 3 colours to make teal coloured paint for the plastic game pieces. She mixes blue, green and yellow paint in the ratio 4:2:1. Callista wants to make 14 litres of teal coloured paint. She thinks she needs 1.6 litres of yellow paint. Is she correct? Show how you decide. 2 marks available. Let's see. So this is the way our learner has gone about this. They've added up the parts in the ratio. So that's the 7 parts in the ratio. And then they've divided 14, which is the total amount of paint that Callista wants to make. 14 divided by 7 gives us 2, so 1 part in the ratio is equal to 2. And if we look at the ratio, for blue it's 4 parts, for green it's 2 parts, and for yellow it's just 1 part. So Callista needs 2 litres of yellow paint in order to make the 14 litres of teal coloured paint. And then we've got this: use a reverse calculation to check your answer. And our learner has reversed the 2 times 7, well, reverse the 14 divided by 7 equals 2. So they've calculated that if 1 part is 2 litres, multiply that by the 7 parts, we get 14. So yes, we're happy with that. And then our learner has also done a second part to this reverse calculation. They have added up the total amount of the different types of paint. So the Callista needs 8 litres of blue paint, 4 litres of green paint, and 2 litres of yellow paint, which gives the 14. So they have got the 1 mark there for the reverse calculation. Now at level 2, quite often, if your answer requires 2 parts, it is highly likely that your check question may need 2 parts to it. So you may need to do 2 reverse calculations to gain that single checking mark. Okay, we'll take a look at estimation now. Now, we use rounding to make estimates in day-to-day life. We do it all the time. If I went out for dinner with a couple of friends and the bill came and it was £73.50, we very well may say, well, who had what, and add it up that way. Or, you know, if we had roughly the same amount of food each, we would round up the £73.50, we'd round that up to £75, because 75 is very easy to divide by 3, and we'd say, well, it's £25 each, and then a little bit extra for a tip. At level 1 and level 2, we have subject content statements that are specifically about estimation, rounding for estimation. And these are assessed separately to check questions, so they should be covered in your course, and they will help you when it comes to check questions that require estimation. So we're looking at level 1, approximate by rounding to a whole number or to 1 or 2 decimal places. And at level 2, you need to be able to order, approximate, and compare decimals. Now, when it comes to rounding, you might be taught this using a number line. So here we can see we have a number line that goes all the way from 41.2 up to 41.3. And then each of our divisions is to 2 decimal places. So we've got 41.21, 41.22, 41.23, and so on. Now, the number we're looking at is 41.2668. And we want to decide whether or not we're going to round that to 41.26 or we're going to round it up to 41.27. And the deciding factor is this middle point between the 2 numbers, which is 41.265. If the number that we're asked to round is higher than the number 41.265, then we'll round it up, and if it's lower, we'll round it down. And the important digit that we're looking at is the 3rd digit. Okay, so we're rounding to 2 decimal places, which means the digit we want to look at in our number is the 3rd digit. And if that digit is 5 or higher, we round up. So we don't need to write a number line every single time. We can just know that if it's 5 or above, we round up, and if it's below 5, we round down. In this particular instance, because a 6 is higher than a 5, we are going to round up to 41.27. We'll take a look at a level 1 example now. Simon has a luggage allowance of 23 kilograms. He's already packed 18,400 grams. How many more kilograms can he pack? Our learner has highlighted the key information, so 23 kilograms and 18,400 grams, and they've done the calculation. 23 take away 18.4. So the 18.4, they've got that by dividing the 18,400 by 1,000, since there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram. So they've done that conversion. 23 take away 18.4 is equal to 4.6, and they've put that as their answer. And then we have that check question. Use estimation to check your answer. And our learner has done the 23 take away 18. So they've rounded the 18.4 to 18, and they have done that calculation and they've shown the answer. So it's really important. If that learner had put just 23 take away 18 and not put the equals 5, they would not get that mark. So that's something important for you to think about, and that applies to level 1 and level 2, but also quite often, particularly at level 1, learners are worried about, well, what should we round to? It says use estimation, so am I okay to round to the nearest whole number, or should I round to the nearest 10? For example, 23 take away 20, would that be acceptable? And it's important for you to know that when it comes to the estimation questions, you are being assessed on N15, number 15. So that's the subject content 15 from the qualification specification, which is estimate answers to calculations using fractions and decimals. So obviously here we're using decimals, and since we've got a decimal number in our answer, a sensible way of doing the rounding is to round the decimal number to the nearest whole number. So as a general rule of thumb, for level 1, round to the nearest whole number. It's not going to tell you specifically, round to the nearest 10, round to the nearest 1 decimal place, round to the nearest 2 decimal places in a check question. If there could well be questions during your assessment that do state very specifically what you need to round to, because something else that you're assessed on is approximate by rounding to a whole number or to 1 or 2 decimal places. So that's a level 1 subject content statement, and when you're being assessed on that, it will specifically say what you need to round to. But for the estimation or check questions, you're not told specifically, so a general rule of thumb, round to the nearest whole number at level 1. And now we have a level 2 example. A typical hot tub holds 309 gallons of water when it is full. Chlorine needs to be added to the water. 250 gallons of water need 1.5 tablespoons of chlorine. 1 tablespoon of chlorine weighs 14 grams. How many grams of chlorine are needed for 309 gallons of water? And again, our learner has very sensibly highlighted the key information. And the first thing they've done is they've divided the 309 gallons of the hot tub, 309 divided by 250, since we know how much chlorine we need for 250. So doing that calculation gives us an answer of 1.236, and that means we know that we need 1.236 lots of the chlorine that we know about. So for 250 gallons of water, we need 1.5 tablespoons of chlorine. So the next thing that our learner has done here is they've calculated how much that weighs. 1.5 times 14 is 21, so it weighs 21 grams, and therefore we can calculate 1.236 times 21, so that's 1.236 lots of the amount of chlorine we need, and that gives us our answer, 25.956. So our learner has placed their answer there. And when it comes to the check, use estimation to check your answer. They've actually rounded the total number of gallons to start with. So they've rounded the 309 to 300, divided that by 250 to give them 1.2. And then they've done the 1.2 times 21 to reach 25.2. So they've used an estimation, they've used rounding, and they've done the calculation and shown their answer so they could gain a mark. When it comes to level 2, again, it's not going to tell you specifically what to round to, like to round to 1 decimal place or round to 2 decimal places or round to the nearest whole number. It leaves that up to you to decide. And when it comes to the mark scheme for these questions, the sample mark scheme for this estimation question, or an estimation question, it's a different question in the sample, it says OE, that stands for or equivalent, any reasonable calculation, but it must include at least one estimate. So notice the mark scheme is not penalising, it's not mentioning by what you need to round to 1 decimal place, to 2, to nearest whole number. It doesn't state that. So you don't need to worry about getting penalised for that. Similarly, the mark scheme for the practice check question, estimation check question, says any valid check of their working or answer using estimation using their values. And again, that's something else that's reassuring for you. If the answer to the first part was incorrect, but you did a check and you used estimation to check the incorrect answer, you can still get the mark. So, in summary, having strategies to check your answers is going to help you with all of your assessment questions and when using maths in real life. The check questions in NCFE assessments will always state which strategy to use. If it wants a reverse calculation, it will ask for a reverse calculation. If it wants an estimation, it will say use estimation. When reverse calculation is required, you should complete the inverse operation from your working. When estimation is required, you should round numbers from the question or from your working and complete the necessary operations to give a final answer. I do hope this recording is helpful to you and it helps with your live assessments and with those checking questions, but also giving you some strategies to check all of your answers. Lots of luck to you. Thank you.